Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Canines Talking Sense. I'm your host, Cameron Ford, and on this episode, there was a very unique thing that was happening here in Santa Rosa, California, and it was detection dog research. So I figured, what better opportunity could I have to sit down with my guests and go over what's going on in the detection dog research world, and that is with Dr. Lauren DeGreeff and Lindsay Waldrop. So thank you both for coming on and spending time to answer some questions.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Lindsay, you're a newbie to being on the podcast.
Yes.
But, so we'll start off, we'll let you tell us about you, and then we'll go to Dr. DeGreeff, because she's been here before, but I will rehash what she's doing now. But go ahead with what your background, how you're here, what's going on.
Chapman University. My background is in experimental and computational fluid dynamics. I'm really interested in biological fluid structure interactions. So my other projects are how tiny heart tubes pump blood and how crabs sniff. And it's sort of, everybody laughs because it's like, oh, I didn't know crabs sniffed, which is the first thing, but that's what I did my dissertation on. So this sort of naturally fell into the fluid structure interactions.
Okay.
Odors are in fluids, air is a fluid, and the interaction between that fluid in the dog's nose is really fascinating to me. I also trial in ACSW, scent work with my own two dogs.
Okay.
I'm not very good at it, but I like it. They like it,
Yeah.
so it's fun.
It's all about having fun with it.
Absolutely.
Now, are you PhD, doctor too?
I am.
Oh, so I needed to introduce you as Dr. Lindsay. So
you.
my apologies for
No
not
worries, no
knowing
worries.
that. But, so what drew you into the dog world?
So I've been into sort of dog stuff since I was a kid. I did junior showmanship when I was in high school. I did agility, but not in competition, but we trained for agility with a dog that I lost a couple of years ago. And then just trying all sorts of stuff. She was a border collie mix, and she just loved trying stuff. I love trying stuff. So we dabbled in a bunch of different things. But in terms of professionally, it was a number of years ago, right in the first year of the pandemic.
During COVID, yep.
We had Dr. DeGreeff as our keynote speaker for an undergrad research conference at Chapman University, where we do a lot of undergraduate research.
Because I went to Chapman.
Yeah, yeah. So as an alum too. So she and I got talking on Zoom in like a little breakout room about different stuff, and she had realized that she had probably read some of my papers on crab stuff.
I used her images from her papers I had been using in talks when I explained that odor plumes can be really complex. Mm-hmm. I was using pictures out of her papers. And so I guess I knew her through research before I knew her.
Yeah.
So
Small world.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead.
So we sort of batted around a project idea on different dog breeds and is there any performance difference between different dog breeds or different skull shapes in dogs? And eventually we were able to secure some Office of Naval Research funding to do that project.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was like 2021. Mm-hmm. So I've been kind of in that world since then. So.
Nice.
Fun.
Now, you're no stranger to the show, but let people know what's going on in Dr. DeGreeff's world. I know since last time we talked, you're at a whole new facility and
Yes.
university, obviously.
Yes.
So give us an update about you. What's going on?
Yeah, so I was at the Navy, which is where I was when I originally met Lindsay. I was at the Naval Research Laboratory. And in 2021, right at the beginning of the project that she was referencing, I moved to Florida International University because I wanted to be in academia, and also I'm a big fan of Miami. Mm-hmm. So I moved down there and started my research group. I don't remember how many students I had last time we talked, but we're up to, I believe it is 11 now. Mm-hmm. I have 4 of them here with me right now. So we have all kinds of different research going on because each of my graduate students get a different project. Some of them are lucky enough to have more than one project. So all kinds of great stuff. We've got explosives detection. We've got all kinds of interests in contamination. We've got fentanyl training aids, validation of training aids. We have a couple of different human remains projects. My student Michelle she's Dr. Michelle, Dr. Karpinski, just finished her crude oil project. Okay. And the almost Dr. Calabrese is doing buried odor, which actually Lindsay is now taking part of also.
Oh, yes. Nice. So since you were here this week, I guess we'll start off with the explosive dog research since you're already kind of in that topic now. Tell us a little bit about what kind of what we're looking at when it comes to, let's say, research. And you can be general first, I guess, talking about what we're seeing in the world in bomb dogs. And then anything you want to go into particular, because I know the research project is still going on. I know you may not want to give out too much information yet to spoil anyone else who attends, but share what you can where we're at in the bomb dog world and what you're seeing and some of the research going on.
Sure. I think that there's a really big push right now to answer questions that we maybe as dog people already anecdotally know the answers to, because courts, people who hand out money, we need to give them proof that these things are occurring. So there's a push right now to validating anecdotal evidence, what we're working on is validating standards. I'm also working on validating the use of different types of training aids. So I think there's a big push to just basically support the people who are out there. Also, personally, myself and most of the researchers I work with are very motivated by trying to answer questions that are useful to the people in the field. So it's maybe a little bit less about like fundamental research on, although we do pretty fundamental research, but a lot of it is very hands-on and like, okay, if I do this experiment, then I'm going to be able to give information to guys in the field and they're going to be able to do a better job, train their dogs better, understand their dogs better, what have you. So the project that we were working on earlier this week is about validating certification standards. So I'm on a board and you're on a board that has created standards for explosives detection. It's the ASB ANSI 092 explosive detection standard, came out of the OSAC group, which is a group of people. I'm not going to go too far into it, but it's a group of people that has both practitioners and scientists, and we get together and try to figure out training and certification standards for dogs. And the first one that came out through this ASB ANSI is the explosives detection. And so we decided to take the certification guidelines in there, how you conduct a certification, like how do you set that test up and validate it. We're testing the test. So we want to know, theoretically speaking, if you can be certified by this test, you should then be operational. But we all know that certification tests tend to be a little simplified, right?
Yep.
We have very simple lines because they need to be something.
And they haven't changed in decades.
Right. So we want to know if, when we do these really simplified tests, does that really speak to how effective you are going to be operationally? So that's what we were testing. So what we did over the last couple of days is we ran 2 full certifications according to OSAC guidelines, and we ran a handful of different, more what I'm calling realistic scenarios, things that'd be more challenging. And we want to correlate the performance in the certification to the performance on these operational scenarios. So this was the last one we did. We did this 3 times. So we have about, I want to say 55 dogs in the study, which we're really proud of. 55 working explosive detection dogs. And we did San Antonio, Miami, and we just came here. And we had a fantastic group here. They are law enforcement, they're local, they're federal. We also had a few military and a lot of contractors. And then we'd like to set it up so they also are getting training out of it. We don't want to waste, it's not just data collection. It's supposed to be useful for them because we're using real explosives that people don't always have access to. So I don't know yet how it looks. We're working up the data and hope to have the paper submitted in the next 2 months.
So a couple things I want to kind of go into there, and then we'll get into the research that you're doing, Lindsay. So I guess the first question I would have is, should there be a unified standard if you're doing this type of explosive detection work? Should the standard be the same whether you're in California or New York City?
I tend to think that a base guidelines that could be used so you can compare apples to apples. They do have, in these certifications, you can choose this or this. Or, and there's a lot of, within that recommendation, it does give you wiggle room for picking things that are operationally relevant to you. And that's one of the things that we will probably go back and after this study, we're going to go back and we are going to readdress some things in that standard. One thing I didn't mention is that we're working with a human factors psychologist who's doing some interviews. So we're getting opinions. So it's not just about testing the test. It's also about, like, we found it to be very logistically difficult to set up. To the point in which it would prevent people from being able to set it up. And so what can we do about that standard to make it logistically easier, more reason, but still, maintaining
the integrity of what we're looking for.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's going to be a handful of different things to consider, but the hope is that we would have a base that everybody could agree to,
and then go to specialties from there.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like if you're a pedestrian or passenger screening canine for explosives, you still can do a baseline,
right?
And then go do something based that evaluates your capabilities to do that type of detection work,
right?
And then if the standard dog would be your traditional, let's say, cargo screening style. Theirs would be dictated or directed towards that direction, and then what I'd call like a general specialist would be just the one who has to do like all of it.
So the way it's set up now is we have EDD. So just I don't search people, I just search things. Then you have, or at least static people, no moving people, and then you have person screening, which is moving people, and then you have EDD with person screening, and there are different ways of doing that. So that's how they delineate those groups. But within like just EDD, for instance, it gives you the option of different things you can search. Like it has searching planes on there as an optional search. Obviously, there's a lot of people where searching a plane is completely irrelevant.
Sure.
But if you have like Secret Service, they need to be able to search a plane. So there's like a pick and choose aspect to it, as well as the fundamentals.
Which I think is important because people, as you already know, freak out the minute we say standardized certification. No matter where you're at, you should be doing this. And everyone's like, well, no, we do it different, and I do it different here, and my this. And then we just keep keeping it the way it's been, which is this watered down, oversimplified view of how a dog performs. You get 5 rooms, 2 fines, and 5 cars and 3 fines. That's like doesn't even it doesn't match.
Yeah.
We were doing that shit in the 80s, but the problem is we're still doing it now when it's 2025.
Right, exactly. Like one of the things that I think, like this is maybe one of my teasers, I guess, that I think that we ran across people don't like the ORT, but I'm not going to get into that right now.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we did run across is a lot of people are training when they do a box search, so a parcel search, they're training with them crisscrossed shut and not actually shut.
Shutting
and so we did a single piece of tape across it and we put stuff in it.
Yep.
Because that
It's what's going to be done.
That seems normal to me.
Yes.
And so we're having people that were having issues with detection. They're like, oh, well, I train with them not taped shut. I'm like, well,
that's not what you do for a living, though.
I'm like, yeah. I'm like, well, I don't feel like people are going to ship explosives material in an open box.
Yes.
So that was a really interesting thing. Like I've been on those meetings for OSAC, and at no point did we say, hey, we should tell people to tape boxes shut.
Because you think they'd be common sense. Yeah.
It could be.
Yeah.
But I could also see where they're coming from if you're just trying to get your dog, like if you're starting out a dog, you're not going to have it taped super shut.
These are certifying teams.
Right. So I can understand where you kind of like, you get used to doing something one way and you kind of forget that that's maybe not reasonable, and you go out in the world and you're maybe things aren't always matching. So that's kind of a recent thing that we noticed in this trial, that, hey, we should probably add that into the standard where we suggest doing
it like it would be presented in the real world.
Right.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I don't know exactly what's going to go into our paper yet, so nobody quote me yet. But that's an example of the kind of things we've observed.
What would be, how important do you feel that the certification standards need to be updated compared to where we've been to where we should be doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And OSAC is doing that right now. We're going back through old SWIG dog documents, and then we're also incorporating, like for human remains, for instance, we're taking old SWIG dog documents, and then we're combining that with what FEMA's doing, but we're not reiterating what FEMA's doing, and we're not reiterating what SWIG dog had decided. We are taking that, and we have people who are FEMA handlers. We have people who are from other countries that do HR. So we have people on OSAC that have different opinions on how you should set this up and come together, and hopefully it will be a stronger standard. But so I am working with, I should say this, we are working with Texas Tech on this program. So Paola Tiedemann is the co-PI.
She was supposed to be here, but her husband made SWAT, so we had to give her a break.
She had to let her husband be the have his limelight this week instead. So Paola's not here. And she is the head of OSAC right now. But we're hoping that we can do this study with drugs and with HR. And honestly, I think a lot of the trends will be the same for each discipline, but that we should get stronger and stronger documents as we start running these studies, and then put that out there with put that into the mix when we're writing the documents.
What would be something that's been unexpected or surprising, either category, that you've seen through this particular research so far?
I'm surprised that we decided that 10 cars was a good idea. We're like, when we go to set it up, we're like, how do we get 10 cars that don't have dogs or explosives in them? It takes an unbelievable amount of time to search 10 cars. And if you have 20 people going, that is a massive chunk of the day. It's things that we're like, oh, we need to get to 90% of success. And so 10 seems like a good number.
Yeah.
And then you go to do it and you're like, oh shit, that's hard.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's kind of the things that when I was sitting on that side made sense. And then when you actually go to do it, you're like, oh.
Yep.
It's been really fun on the ORT to watch the dogs throw boxes. We've enjoyed that.
Watch our heads go in the box and then toss it out. Yep. That's, again, the downside to the folding box thing.
It is.
Because then dogs become playful with boxes. They're like, boxes are great. I can toss them around.
And people rightfully have said, well, why aren't you using cans? I'm like, well, because I'm flying to different places and the cans are logistically problematic for me. But they're not wrong.
Go on. Anything else? I mean, what about so observation-wise, without giving too much information, has there been anything kind of surprising there or something you're like, I didn't expect that? Or
they do really well with room searches.
Yep.
I found, and because of that, some of the more operational things they do pretty well on. So that's been really cool to see. I don't know yet, but I feel pretty good about the operational stuff. A lot of the dogs are getting it. So they're not, some of them have trace odor and they're getting it. We have, since we're done, I can say it now. We have one that has a pressure cooker, and since we wouldn't be getting odor out of the pressure cooker, it's just a thumbprint of smokeless powder, I think, on the outside of the pressure cooker, and the dogs are getting it. So it's not, we don't have to have 100 and some grams out for success to occur. Like, people should trust their dogs. Their dogs are getting it. That also had a bit of, it was a thumbprint of smokeless powder and then a bit of det cord.
Yep.
That was sticking out of the pipe bomb, or not the pipe bomb, the pressure cooker. Yep. And then it was in a book bag.
Ford K9 is excited to announce we have 2 great events upcoming here at our facility in Santa Rosa, California. The first is in July 15th through the 18th, and that is our Advanced Detection Dog Seminar. This seminar is open to all detection dog disciplines, and it's for teams that are fairly advanced in their skill set. On top of this, if you have a fully trained explosive detection dog or firearms dog and you're looking for a career opportunity with Stratus K9, attending this event could get you selected to work for Stratus K9. Our detection dog handler course, which is August 4th through the 15th, also is open to all detection dog disciplines. If you have a partially trained or even fully trained explosive dog or firearms dog, you are also encouraged to attend this event if you're looking for employment with Stratus K9. We will also offer some select scholarships to individuals who qualify to attend these classes for employment with Stratus K9. Make sure you either go to fordk9.com or stratusk9.com and fill out an application, so that way we have your information. We'll review it. If you have any questions, please contact us. And we look forward to seeing you all sign up in one of these 2 events and maybe even get a job with Stratus K9. What would you say, so on that, because you're bringing up the trace, now that you've made some observations, would you say it's important to train to lower levels and then work your way up, or start off with those high levels and then try to work your way down?
Well, I'm not a trainer.
Yep.
So I will be very careful about what I say. And you might be able to have an opinion on this also. But, I mean, obviously you want to imprint, you want to make sure that you're imprinting the dog on the odor that you want. If you have too low of an odor when you're imprinting, there's the possibility of the container, the nitrile gloves, whatever, being more salient and more available, and then you're going to confuse them. But we do need to remember that bad guys wrap things really well, so you are going to need to move towards trace eventually. I mean, you can have...
So would you say low moderate is probably a better word to use? Low to moderate level. And this is going to be substance dependent too, obviously.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so low to moderate in one category is totally different than low to moderate in another one. But low to moderate and then go down and go up depending on what you're dealing
absolutely.
with. Yeah,
I mean, I'm a big believer that as much variation as you can possibly get, reasonably speaking. is the key.
Which is
to
what
success.
we saw with the odor part of it, right?
Right.
Like teams who don't get a very diverse kit to work with or only have their one kit.
Yeah.
There was things that we noticed that they probably need to see that odor in a different way.
Yeah, we did have people that had one particular variation of one of the explosives not be able to find the variation that we had, for instance. And I thought that was an important find.
Yeah.
Same with like the smokeless and black powders, the people who are training on a single brand weren't necessarily finding the brand that we had. So things that have a lot of variation, there's certain, like TNT is going to kind of be like TNT.
Yeah.
And yes, there are papers showing that like dogs don't necessarily generalize all the different variations, but that one might be a little bit easier. But like one brand of smokeless powder can be very different than a different brand of smokeless powder.
For sure. And you guys had something unique too in the lineups, which was Tang. Can you explain why you guys used Tang and what was connected to it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. A couple of the real world ones, we wanted to make homemade explosives or pretend to make homemade explosives, and so we had ammonium nitrate is one of the required odors on the OSAC. So we had ammonium nitrate out, but we wanted you need something to make it a bomb. You need the fuel.
Yep.
So we did ammonium nitrate and Tang, and I think I did ammonium nitrate and sugar. I can't remember my other. I can't remember what my other combo was, but we did ammonium nitrate and Tang because Tang makes a great fuel.
Yep, and people don't know that. And it was even more unique. There's a double-based smokeless powder called Shocky's Gold, and when you smell it, it smells like Tang.
Does it really?
Yes, it smells exactly like Tang.
Oh, that's so mean.
And a lot of dogs, when you present that to them that have been on double-based smokeless powder and a couple of different variations, will walk Shocky's Gold.
Yeah.
Because of that strong Tang smell. And I'm sure whatever chemicals in Tang is probably what they're using because it's, again...
Really makes me want to drink Tang.
Yes, right? It makes you go, well, I don't know. But yeah. So, yeah, I thought that was pretty unique. And then the things that we were talking about that we saw, which was how important it was, what this was really highlighting to me from the trainer side point of view was we don't diversify those training aids enough. Everybody gets really comfortable with the kits that they have. They pull those kits frequently. They're easy. It's something that we can do, but it's problematic to make sure the dog can actually find something operational, because if it's not in the way that they've gotten thousands upon reps on, then all of a sudden this thing's coming through, and though the chemical is there, it doesn't smell exactly like that chemical they've been training on.
Exactly.
Which then the handler's confidence to go, is it there or not there? I mean, I'm seeing a change, but it looks like they're smelling food too. I can't really tell the difference. And what I found unique was a lot of handlers were like, oh yeah, I know the difference. But all of a sudden when they get tested, nope, they don't know the difference.
Right.
They struggle really, really hard of calling something, because when we took away their information, they had nothing to go by. They didn't know whether it was odor present or not, because you guys were in blanks.
Yeah.
That changed all of a sudden confidence, which what I see operationally happen.
Right.
Because all of a sudden when we're red teaming, explosive dog teams at sites, they're missing stuff. It's not that the dog's missing; the dog's actually showing some change. The handler's confidence in reading their dogs is where it kind of falls apart.
Right.
And in the bomb community, it's hard for a handler to want to call something, because they're like, what's the likelihood that my dog has really found something? So then there's that hesitation. And then the other part is, if I do say it, we're going to shut down operations.
Yeah.
And this place I'm working at, this means this, this, and this. So in training, people like to view their thing and feel really confident. But all of a sudden when we test it, we take away knowledge. We take away, the conditions that tell them, the context that tells them this is training. All of a sudden we see a very different thing. Even though I think, like we said, the dogs are fairly decent. Some dogs need more variety. But dogs, in some cases, are at least going, there's something different about this that's connected to what I know. But the handler's understanding of that is where our gap exists.
Yeah, absolutely. One of I think our most success, and I haven't seen the data, but just from watching, the handler that I believe was the most successful yesterday, we asked her how she was doing it, and she said, I just watch my dog. Mm-hmm. She did not make a big deal out of it at all. She just said, I just let her tell me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's perfect. That is the best response I've heard. Yeah. It's really cool.
Because some people get so wrapped up about the trained final response as well. Like, well, I can't call anything unless it does this exact thing. Yeah. And
she just had confidence in her dog.
Yes, and that's huge.
She just had confidence in her dog, that her dog knew what it was doing, and she just had to let the dog tell her what was going on.
Yeah.
It was cool.
No, that's super cool. All right, Lindsay, so tell us about the research that you were doing here, and what what you're kind of looking, if you whatever you can. I don't know what if you can't talk about something published yet or whatever, but what you're doing, what you're seeing, because again, I think it's really cool because it's in relation to sport dogs, right?
Yeah, so we use a lot of sport dogs in training. It's definitely less complex. I'm sitting here thinking like, I'm so glad I don't have to prove. I don't have to do anything. We just use one odor and we use the same concentration and we just hide it in different spots. It's way easier than operational dogs. So we're really interested in this branch of research is how are these dogs finding source? Odor plumes are really complex structures fluid dynamically. A lot of different things influences the development of an odor plume, where odor ends up going, where dogs end up picking it up, and how dogs eventually find it to source. So one of the things that we did here was, we can just talk about it. It's not a big deal.
Oh, absolutely. Happy to talk about it.
We were really interested in studying the difference between really high concentrations of odor and really low concentrations of odor, and how they would differ in the way that they were searching that sort of plume structure that it was producing. And behaviorally, we'll look at the behavior stuff. And
that probably is actually a nice thing about using the nosework dogs is that they do only do the one concentration level. So that actually makes the study quite clean.
Yeah.
Right.
Controlled, if you will.
So one of the things we were collecting a lot of different data. One thing that we were doing was we had flow sensors in all of our holes in this wall. And so as the dogs were investigating each hole, they were taking a sniff, and we could record the volume flow rate and the speed at which they were sniffing back and forth on the holes. And then I had 3 GoPro cameras set up and calibrated so that I can reconstruct the 3D motion of the dog's head.
Okay.
So we put a little bit of nail polish, like little toddler nail polish, on the tip of their nose and in between their eyes. So my tracking program can reconstruct the 3D position of their head as they go through. So we'll be able to look at where exactly they're moving, how they're changing angles or changing directions as they're searching those different plumes, and be able to hopefully pull up some interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So we don't know. It's very labor intensive to process the data.
Oh, I bet.
So it'll be some time before we know
what it tells us.
Yeah.
Now, it brings up something interesting because, like you're talking about your wall. It's a typical kind of port type wall. So one thing that Natalie and I had kind of learned over the past 18 months to 2 years, and I was telling you when you first got here, one of the things that we ran into with some dogs, and I'm curious to see if you see the same thing because you've been doing it long enough and seeing some dogs from different programs or different training backgrounds. What we started noticing with ports, whether it be a port on a box or a port on a wall, for a percentage of dogs, it becomes an operant thing. They go and they stick their nose in there, but they're not sniffing like they would because they go in there and they just put the nose in, and some will sniff a little bit, but it's totally different. What we noticed was when we changed it from a port to more like a multi-hole kind of screen, like a cheese grater kind of look, you know?
Okay.
Way higher sniffing frequency. Because, and it was actually Michael Ellis who called it out. Michael was like, what I see with the ports and what was going on is becomes very some certain dogs, because of their training background, who are used to kind of offering behaviors to get things, will go to a box or go to a thing and basically just do that. And when they were first learning, there's only 2 options in the beginning. His thing was like, are they really learning, or are they just, is this a little bit of chance mixed in with offering behaviors? And it made Natalie and I start to wonder. And then I happened to be at Lackland with Dr. Hilliard, and I was kicking around the idea even further. We took one of the boxes they had and we took basically pegboard and put pegboard as the lid instead of the typical one hole. And way more sniffing.
Oh, that's cool.
The dogs slowed down because at first they went fast because they had been habituated to go bok, bok, boom, 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 boom. Because it's just henpecking basically, hole.
Right.
But when they took away the holes, they were like, and they were doing way more breathing. Because we took away, to Michael Ellis's point, an operant behavior that was happening because of the port would trigger a behavior. Where that was requiring sniffing to figure it out. And the unique thing that we learned was I could actually put the container of my substance could be different shapes now. Because of the screen, I could have whatever size thing back here. So I could have a pouch, I could have a can, whatever things I would want to use. You could set it up a little bit easier that way too. But I found that phenomenon it took a person who's not a detection person to kind of look at it. Who's obviously a well-educated trainer that looked at it and went, I'm seeing this. And we had saw it too. Like Natalie and I both saw it. Like we had seen that numerous times, especially dogs with various backgrounds of doing behaviors. It made total sense. But it wasn't until we kind of played with that, going from one port to like that pegboard style kind of cover that, and to the point where I would even put a microphone under one just so I could hear it myself.
Oh, that's a good way of testing that.
And then I was really hearing way more sniffing.
That's a good idea.
That is.
But the first few times,
Lindsay and I are like,
oh yeah,
study design.
and it was so. But at first, you're going to see dogs like my own dogs that were used to the port were going over it fast at first because they were looking for like port and they couldn't find it anymore. Once they realized there was no port there, then they're like, oh, okay, I got to sniff.
Right.
And then it was like crazy. It was like, I mean, the amount of sniffing was crazy. Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah.
Because all I have is just my anecdotal experience to say this is what's happening.
I couldn't figure out how to test it before until you mentioned the microphone. Now I know how we would test it.
Yeah.
Yep. That's really cool.
Yeah, so it was just kind of cool, and I had seen some things because here's where it also connected to me. You probably have seen various trainers who use the brick walls, and in Europe they have the really hexagonic shaped, blocks that we don't have here. So those require heavy sniffing.
Right.
I also so I saw that there, and I didn't want to have walls of bricks all the time because to me the bricks I got to throw them away after I've contaminated
because they
them.
also soak the crap out of all
Everything.
the odor, so
Yes.
they just get so contaminated.
Yes, so I wanted to not have to deal with that. So that's why I did the PVC pipe wall. Because then I could remove the pipes out whenever I needed to. We could throw them away, sterilize if we wanted to, etc.
Right.
But what I saw on the pipe wall was the same, like way more rapid sniffing. Because they were like up and down trying to find the exact
As opposed
spot.
to like
the walls with just the ports on them.
That's such an interesting observation, and one of the really interesting things I'll have to say about sort of jumping into this world as a scientist is being able to interface with so many trainers who are so knowledgeable and they give you so many ideas.
Yeah.
Like, I would have never come up with that.
That's why I give these seminars when I do HITS or IPCA or any of that.
I get like 100 experiment ideas from just talking with people.
And then a lot of it's because they're like, "Do you know if this affects it?" I'm like, "I don't." But how could I set that up?
Yes.
So that
play with it.
It's great.
That could be done.
Are you looking for an opportunity to become a professional detection dog handler? Do you already have a fully trained explosive or firearms detection dog? We want to hear from you. Come join us at Stratus Canine and go visit stratuscanine.com. That is STRATOSK9.com. Fill out a job application with us. We will review that application and be in touch with you. We look forward to having you join Stratus Canine and be a part of our team. The easy one we did was we just went to, you can get it from Home Depot. It's plastic pegboard.
Yeah.
Because we want to stay away from the wood because that was super porous.
Wood's a whole other problem.
Yes. But the plastic pegboard and or the things that they use to like hang shelves or hang products off shelves, those metal ones that have all the little so you can do the same thing with them. Those get wiped down really easy. But the boxes that I had this guy in Europe help make, I had ideas in my head like I showed you. Like I wanted one box I could do multiple things. He makes the lids now for me that are already pre-made to fit the boxes that already have those multiple holes. But the easy version is to me, like I said, going to Home Depot, getting the plastic pegboard, or like I said, finding those stores that make those shelves that you have these different cutouts of all the shapes and stuff so you can hang products off of. All those things work. So those, if they're listening or want to play with themselves,
that is a really good
the easy thing you can do.
I'm having interest because what we could do. I know you want me to plan out my research right now.
No, please. This is good. Everybody wants to hear this.
What we could do is set up an experiment somehow. This might be more operational where we try to, after we've done all the work that we've done, because we also did a prior study the same way comparing different odorants. So we compared ammonia, which floats a lot, to it's a very, very light odor, to 2-ethyl-1-hexanol, which is an odor that is from the plasticizers of C4, which is a bit heavier than ammonia. So we compared those. We compared both how they work the plume as well as the sniffing dynamics in their nose, just like we did with the high-low. Once we kind of get a grasp on both of those, we could maybe set up something where we can compare success with what's going on with their sniffing, and if we could do that, then we could go back to looking at these different training techniques, and like how are we getting them to sniff during training in a way that they sniff when they're successful. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, which of these training techniques best mimics something where they're...
That's such a good idea, because the other thing that I keep seeing all the time is in operational aspects, the dogs do sniff things way harder. Because there's so many new things.
We have that on record now when I say, hey, I had an idea and I can't remember it.
Go back and
Now we have a record source.
But that where you're going with that was really interesting. Her eyes just got enormous. Why don't you tell her about the outcome of the most interesting part of the outcome of the last study we did?
The last study, so operational dogs. One of we had 2 papers of the last study. It was about 2 years ago, and we did this wall situation with nosework dogs. Did a bunch of different sizes of the dogs.
Okay.
And, different breeds and stuff like that. We're really interested in head shape too, which is sort of another aspect of the project. But we tested on operational dogs as well with these little volume flow rate sensors.
Okay.
Those operational dogs take just samples. The volume of their sniff is like 10 times higher than the nosework dogs.
Which was fascinating because these nosework dogs that we used were high-level nosework dogs.
Yeah.
These were not like NW1. These were like, a lot of them were elite or summit or things.
Yeah. And
But
it was wild.
The volume that the operational dogs were sniffing was enormous. It was so interesting. And when you took dogs that were of the same size in the operational versus all the operational dogs were either shepherds or males.
Yeah.
For that particular group that we used. But when you compared the shepherd or mal type sized dogs in the nose work,
And we did have one male or male mix.
we had a mal mix to compare directly. Operational dogs were just
wild.
Yeah, so it was not like a
Quick little.
it was not like a size, shape, lung capacity, nose length, anything like that. It was something to do with the difference between how they're being trained. I don't know what it is. People are always like, okay, so tell us what it is now. And we're like, we don't know, but it's cool, right?
I'm thinking I can think of like 3 or 4 things that might make that happen, like what you're bringing up. And
It's not
but what is
sniffing
it?
frequency.
No, it's the
That
volume.
stayed the same.
So they sniff at
across
the exact
dogs.
same frequency.
Okay.
Yes. But
But the
somehow-
volume
it's the
of
volume
air they can bring in and push around is different.
is wildly different.
Yeah. That is pretty
Really
crazy.
interesting.
Yeah.
I was actually shocked that the sniffing frequency didn't vary with body size either. Even the small dogs sniffed the same frequency
Like-
as the larger dogs.
Like
Yep.
Walter. Pete Stevens' dog. Walter, Pete Stevens' dog is a mini dachshund.
Yep. The world according to Walter.
Yes. Very little head. Same thing. But see, if we do a study where we can correlate some of this to success, then we might actually be able to better understand.
Yes, that's true.
What was
That's
maybe
true.
that could actually just begin to tease out
We don't
what
know
was
if
happening in that
it's-
study.
Right, because we don't know if it's the training that's different, or just the fact that a lot of these operational dogs come from working dog
Yeah, it
farms,
could be breeding.
right?
Yeah, it could be genetic side of things, of course. Could be the training side of things. I think somewhere in the middle is going to be the true part. It's a little bit of both.
Probably.
And it could be, I think, their training frequency, because the dogs, let's call it in the professional category, train, at least in the beginning, at a very frequent rate, like Monday through Friday when they're going through schools. So there's a lot of buildup in that early stage that tells the dog this strategy works well.
And the other thing that we're really interested in, and this is one of the things that we hope that we're going to pull out of the study that we were just doing today, is it might be that these explosives dogs have to do that variation.
That's what I was going to say.
Yes.
Of there's a lot of odor and there's
there's
trace
sometimes
amount of
none.
odor,
Yep.
whereas the nosework dogs
It's
are like
steady.
it's prepared for them
Yep.
the same all the time.
Yeah.
And the explosive odors, some of them behave differently.
course.
Ammonia, ammonia vapor behaves differently than
And the dogs have to search it differently.
TATP
Yep.
vapor versus something else. They have to find all of it, and they have a lot more wrapping distractors.
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah. All
stuff
kinds of
like that.
stuff. Yep.
Versus nosework dogs, where the essential oils, the odorants that come off the essential oils are, chemically speaking, they are like structurally and size-wise similar, so they should move. Their plumes should move in pretty
the
much
physical
the same way
properties
for
are
all
the
three
same.
of their
Yeah.
odors, or any of the essential oils, if you can include like AKC as well. So
Yeah.
No, there's so many questions.
Yeah,
No,
there's so many questions. That's the
and that's the
thing.
great thing about doing science is that every time you do science, instead of answering a question, you come up with like 16 more.
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
and then you need more money, which
Yes,
is
it's always the other part
problematic.
of it. Well, if you do the research that we're talking about right now with the port versus the thing, I want to play in that one in some
Yeah,
way
yeah,
or
yeah,
another
yeah.
for sure.
That's cool.
We'll call you up, no problem.
Absolutely.
Now, what have you seen that surprised you on this current
On this
research?
study.
On this current research, I'm having to look.
So we had to like process. She has to process it because we just finished it like 5 seconds
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
Just finish it right now, and my brain is still like in caffeine withdrawal. So I think that it was really interesting that the dogs were super, super successful with our positive control, which was just a Q-tip with regular amount of NACSW, and the negative control, although there was a lot of forcing false alerts because they stayed too long at the wall. But that's pretty understandable. And I think that was really interesting is that the dogs were working the wall with the really high odor. They weren't just sniffing the holes, they were working the sides. And they were working around. We had little boxes, your little bins there to just block them from.
Yep, and they wanted the bins really bad.
And they worked the bins so hard.
Yeah.
And especially we had a situation where one of our sensors was on the fritz. So the person behind the ball who was taking the data walked back and up over and crossed the way. And I think what happened, and then the next dog just worked that
The side.
area, the side, over
As
and
opposed
over
to
and
the
over.
actual.
The holes, and then finally went to the holes and was like, oh, it's right there.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure what happened was that person got up from that huge pool of odor and just dragged it over,
around. Yeah.
and then it spread out through that area. So the dogs were like, "Oh my god, it's so much, but I don't know where."
Yeah.
You know,
Where's the bread factory?
It's really interesting how fast that we forget that the odor plumes can change that rapidly. I just did this fun little workshop with Georgie Jones in the UK.
Okay, yep.
And we were playing with. Well, we originally did a little bit with like smoke and looked at how things move, and that's great. But then we did some stuff. God, it was really cool. We had all the handlers sitting around this big room. We had a hide that was up high, and it was about 10 feet from a door. And we did the whole search with the door closed and watched how the dog moved. And then we opened the door, and that door went to a hallway that led to outside.
Okay.
So there was, and immediately the next dog that came in, 1 minute later, worked that completely differently. And so we did 3 dogs that did it with the door closed, and then 1 or 2 dogs that did it with but you could just see it. And then we did it again in the hallway where we did it with the hallway closed and then the hallway open. And you could just see, it was so cool to watch. It's not a slow process. It's an immediate process.
it's very fast, and I think that it's kind of like the old saying, "A fish doesn't know it's in water."
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
We're in a fluid all the time, and we just forget the air is a fluid and it's moving around. I'm more nerdily aware of it, I guess I would say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Most people.
I agree.
So this brings up a good example real quick. Just around that is smoke gets used a lot of times as an example for what odor's doing. But is it actually a better example of what air's doing more so than what
have
odor's doing?
Very strong opinions on this.
Yes,
as a
please.
fluid.
Yeah.
So
Well, this is
I
why
give-
I'm asking it. I want to.
I give the past couple of years I've given a seminar at ICPA called Odor Movement 101. And one of the things that I try to impress upon people is that they should not be using smoke bombs. And the reason why I feel like that is correct in most situations, because smoke is hot, it rises. Odor is
Not hot.
not hot.
Not hot.
It's a little bit negative, won't buoyant, and it's going to sink really slowly. So why are you using smoke that's going to rise quickly when your odor is likely sinking very slowly? So I recommend things like there are smoke machines available just on Amazon.
Yep.
Those are great, especially if you can slow it down. I just, for my thing, I got a little takeout container and poked a hole in it, stuck the hose in there, and it just pooled just like soup. And you could even like move it around like soup because it was a little bit negative. Poke a hole in the side and let it drizzle out. That's obviously great if you're like in here and you have very low odor, low air movements. If you're outside, in the wind and you're wanting to get a general direction for your search and rescue dog, smoke bomb's probably fine,
Sure.
right? But if you're in here, you need something that matches much more closely the momentum, the buoyancy, and try to match, not try to pump it out faster than the air is moving, essentially.
So your best advice would be to get something that you can control the amount of smoke coming out of it. So what I have is funny you bring that up. So as I learned with all this, doing this studio stuff and videography and photography, is photographers have a handheld little smoke machines, and they work. You can have them go at high volume, low volume, and it's handheld. And you just turn it on, and you can put it indoors. Seems got a little nozzle. You can
that's
bend
cool.
it.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I'll have to show it to you before, but I haven't.
For original, for photographers.
Yeah, a lot of it is for photography.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they do. Well, let's put the machine on, get a little smoke going, then take your picture.
But to take away that's not warm in order for
It's
it to
not
work,
super
which is
warm.
the big
And in
difference
fact-
between that and the smoke bomb.
Yeah.
In fact,
yeah.
that big tube gives plenty of opportunity for that to
To
cool
cool down.
down to
Yep.
ambient too. So when it comes out, the only thing that I worry about there, and this is where I'm very picky because I'm trained as an experimentalist, is pumping it out quickly is going to give you a little bit of a different feel than if it's really still like right now.
Yeah.
So just collecting it in a container and poking a hole is
Yeah.
what you kind of need to do.
It's funny because I didn't know to do that. I just I wanted to show different things.
Yeah.
So what I was showing one time is I grabbed one of our boxes, one you saw, and I put the smoke machine or the little handheld one into there, and it did exactly what you're talking about. It just was like almost like a liquid in there. You could move it around, it would just kind of float. And then when I put the cover on, then I was like, okay, now what the dogs are doing. And you were seeing a totally different aspect. Like they had to go like deeper into it or smell more, use their nose
Draw
more.
more out,
Yep. Yeah. So it was really cool to.
Especially with high hides too. I think people think, oh, it sinks, which they think it's going to be like
Yeah,
right
nope,
down,
yeah.
and it doesn't because it's so it goes so slowly that little tiny air currents can actually move it. I gave this seminar to the Oregon Police Canine Association, had me out last year, and I had them my smoke machine in a hide in a room in a cabinet, and we asked the guys, we had them all pile in with one of their dogs, and asked the guys, okay, where do you think the odor is going to move? And they said, oh, well, it's going to come down here and maybe pool here and right there. And so then we turned on the smoke machine, and what did it do? It came out of the seam of the cabinet and then sort of like went up under the cabinet and went up there. We had it sitting by like a kilo of meth. And then we sent the dog off, and the dog did exactly
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah.
and indicated right at the corner. And I was
Man.
like, see, it even those really small little air currents that change all the time, even with your movement, right, can really drastically change where that odor is moving. So I encourage people not to tell stories about where it's going, have evidence. And the dog is evidence,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
The dog
Yep.
is your sensor.
Going back to trusting what your dog is doing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because the analogy I use, because people are like, oh, all odor falls. And I'm like, okay, so let's take that at face value. If that was true, besides some air movement, if someone was having coffee downstairs or just one floor below you from wherever you're at, and then we don't have the ACs running or whatever, but you can smell the coffee.
Yeah.
How is that making air, means everything's dropping? Means depending on the chemicals, certain things are going to drop and certain things are going to move, like you said, freely because they're so volatile in nature that they're lighter for periods of time. And so, like I used to joke around when Natalie was, working at the house I had in Vegas when she was taking care of dogs or cleaning the floor. I could smell the pine sol upstairs like super fast.
Right.
And once I give people that mental image, then they kind of go, oh, I said, so though, yes, generally speaking, it will fall, but certain things aren't going to fall immediately. Like just because you put it up high right here doesn't mean it's falling down right below it. It's not a waterfall. It's drifting and moving.
And I think people also don't appreciate how much their own wakes
Yo,
drag stuff
yes.
behind it. So at Oregon, we had they had set up a certification search where they had a bunch of lockers with sort of blind passageways, and they said, "Oh well, the odor was in one of these lockers. It was heroin. Good Lord, that stuff smells terrible."
Oh my God.
I was just like, "What is that smell?" But they said, "Well, I think it's going to pool over here in this other blind corner, and the dog's going to pick it up there and follow it to the source." And so what happened was the dogs were picking it up at the start of the bank.
Okay, wow.
Okay? And then going basically straight to it.
Okay.
Because what happened was the guy set the odor, turned around, and then
Walked.
dribbled it in his wake
Yep.
all the way back. So the dogs were like, oh, all the way there.
Yep.
So even when you set up hides, walking straight away, it's probably, I think personally, and I don't have any evidence for this, but when people say, oh, he's just following my odor to the source, I think they're actually just following the wake to the source,
Yeah.
which has tons of odor in it.
But either way,
Yes.
or they could be using both. Either way, the takeaway is that you should be
Moving around all
Yeah,
over.
yeah.
Yeah.
Don't just do back and forth.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
right.
It's
No,
fascinating.
there's just, like we keep saying, there's so much we don't know. And this leads to kind of like this other question I have, which is now that we're finally getting so much good research out there, there's what I see now is people will quickly grab some of the research to validate the belief that they have.
Right.
But I know all of you will say, we're just giving you a look from this lens only. This is the one thing that we're looking at. We weren't looking at all these other things. And though there is some truth to this, it doesn't mean it's true all the way.
Yeah. You got to take the study at face value. So what were the parameters they were testing? And then if you think about what we found at operational versus nose work. I use nose work dogs a lot for my studies because there's certain things I can't do with operational because it will be problematic.
Yeah.
I don't want to screw up the operational dogs. So you need to realize that those dogs are trained somewhat. Is it potentially more realistic than just having a dog that's, I don't know, that's only been trained for this study for 5 days? Maybe. I don't know. But if you're trying to compare what the dogs and nose work are doing to exactly what operational doing, maybe it's going to be the same and maybe it will be a little bit different. So you have to take it with face value. Are there only 3 dogs in the study?
Yes, yeah.
It's really expensive to do dog research. It's really hard to get people to participate. I probably have studies that have very few. I do. I'm going to have one that's going to come out. Very few dogs in it. Sometimes we just don't have a choice.
Yeah.
But we need to keep in mind that the dogs are different. Just like we have sommeliers as humans, and then we have people who can't really smell nuances and things.
Yep.
Dogs are, naturally going to have variation as well. So it's important to remember that. Was the study done in really controlled conditions? That's important to know. There was a study done with humans and actually using trained enologists, which is like a sommelier sort of, versus regular humans. And they asked them to pick out individual odorants and mixtures and found that the trained enologists were much better at it than the regular humans. And so if you think about a study that was done where I have 4 dogs that are only they were completely green and then I used them for this study, those are your random people that you ask to sniff a thing versus if you were to use 4 operational dogs and ask them did the same trial with them. And I'm not implying we have to do what we have to do to get the research done.
Yeah.
We need to be able to control certain things. I'm not implying that having completely green dogs and using them for a study is remotely problematic.
Yeah.
You just have to keep in mind when you read the study that there's always going to be limitations, and like, what are those limitations?
For sure. It's what I've seen. Everything you're bringing up is sometimes it's the conditions of what was tested. And Dr. Nathan Hall did a really good job of explaining this a lot too. He was like, look, I mean, we would love to be in your operational environments and do, tests this way to see some outcomes. But then how do we get some baselines? So we have to do that through some controlled settings so that way we know. And every research has to start somewhere.
Right.
So, which is usually the controlled version first. Yes. And then we take it further from there. Yeah. So.
And it's really interesting too that all research studies, they're meant to be a snapshot. It's meant to explain the story behind it because we're all storytelling creatures as humans too. So I used to run a graduate seminar for first-year graduate students, and we learned to critique studies. No study is perfect.
No,
right?
yeah, correct.
Absolutely nothing. But you will learn something from every study. Even if it is, I think that they said this, and this, but they found this, and that's consistent, and that's what I'm going to take away from it. First-year graduate students are really great at just like ripping stuff apart.
Yeah.
But what you have to do is like, okay, there were problems.
Yep.
Some of they can control, some of them they can't because of all sorts of things. What did you take away from this, right? So don't just tear it apart. What did you take away from it? And that's a really important thing to remember when you're reading studies. Nothing's perfect. If somebody's like, this proves that. Okay, proofs are for math.
Yeah, yep.
And evidence is for science, right?
Yep.
So it's going to, and when we say research, we really mean we read, hundreds of different studies, and we're able to put these puzzle pieces together. Yeah. So it's skill.
Dr. Brian Hare from Duke University, one that does all the cognition stuff, he said it best to me that made me understand. He's like, look, I'm not trying to prove right or wrong. I just want the truth.
Right.
What's the truth in this? And he goes, and sometimes we may see like an outcome that we're like, oh, yes, that maybe verified what our hypothesis was, right. But a lot of times it can go completely against. And he goes, and the truth is where the data is, what tells you where it's at. Because we're talking about like, what about, because I get questions all the time, well, what about this factor and this factor? And I was like, so how do you answer that? He goes, well, the data tells us here's the cluster, but there's always going to be an anomaly or outliers or things like that. And we can't, the truth of it is, those are what they are. There's an anomaly for some reason. Like you're talking about the nose capability. My joke I make all the time is like, you because we don't test our dogs' noses, we don't know if you have the Michael Jordan nose or you have Frank Jordan's nose.
Right.
Michael's brother. Same genetics, same thing. One's Michael Jordan and one's Frank Jordan.
Right.
One had amazing skill and became this thing. Not that Frank's, but Frank's aspect was different than Michael's.
Right.
So we can't make because again, we don't know, do we have the dog who has this parts per quadrillion nose or the dog who's the parts per billion nose kind of, for example. So, because that affects outcomes for some things.
Absolutely. Sure.
Some
and that
dogs,
is, again, if you have like an N equal, a study with 3 dogs, did we happen to end up with 3 Frank Jordans?
Yes. Or did you have one Michael Jordan only? And that was like, why was this one so different than everybody else?
Yeah. So you always have to be a little bit careful.
Yes.
Yep.
And that's the part that, I've always found fascinating about the science. And, my journey into it when I first met you guys, I was like, oh, yes, I'm going to learn all this stuff. And it supported a lot of things that I had felt. So I was even more motivated by it. Then what I've loved is as it's grown, though, and the dog community in general is becoming much more aware of these studies and utilizing them to share their experiences or reference. And that's where I start to see, oh crap, we're coming off the rails a little bit. We're starting to go, it was only science. So then I have to bring handlers back into things like, you still got to work your dog. Because they'll get, the example I'm giving is somebody will come up to a search area and start having like all these things to measure. I'm like, you have one job, just feed your dog.
Yeah.
No matter what's going on in the world, no matter what this space is doing, no matter which wind, temperature, doesn't matter.
We don't need the pendulum on the far end on either side.
Yes. I just need you to put your dog in the space and work it and tell me, is there something here or not?
Right.
And without getting yourself too wrapped up about, well, the wind right over here was this many degrees. And when I went in the shade, it was this many degrees. And what if it's underground? What do I do? And I'm like, just work your dog.
Well, I can promise that you can know all of those things and overthink it like I do. And you still need to look at your dog because the dog is actually the sensor.
Yes.
I so easily work myself up with that stuff. And then trying to like, well, it's not really right. Well, not really. And sometimes I just need to tell myself to shut up and look at the dog.
Yeah. Because I use the science, once I found it, to help me figure out something better. Because if my dog indicated to something, and I don't have anything in the immediate area, then I start going, okay, which way is the wind's going? What's the temperature? And then I can start trying to figure out which way should I go to hopefully locate, pinpoint where that's at, but not ahead of time too much.
I like to use the science, or I don't train dogs to do anything. I like to believe, I like to encourage people to use, at least from my side, the odor chemistry to, if your dog is having trouble, is there something that we can look at as far as, on my side, the odor chemistry that can help explain it? So not to give them more, just a larger and larger toolbox to the point in which it's burdensome.
Yes.
But saying, I'm having some issues here. Let me think about, could it be contamination? Could it be that I'm not training on enough variation of a particular, to kind of, help you figure out where there might be issues when it's not a handling issue, when it is an actual dog detecting problem.
And I love it when my handlers become instant chemists. Oh yeah, it's totally doing this. So it's moving like this, and then I joke around. I said I shop on Amazon probably every day, and I have not seen the Odor Goggles 7000 yet, where I can put these things on my eyes. I mean, we got Meta, Ray-Ban glasses now, but it still doesn't show me which way the odor is doing anything. I still can't tell odor movement yet, but. And then I'll make the other joke is somebody will be like, oh, yeah, the reason why my dog alerted is because there's a mouse in the room and the mouse rubbed the training aid and ran across the wall.
Oh, yeah.
And all the crazy things.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's pretty funny when the same side of the world in the dog world that would be like, who didn't want to follow science, all of a sudden has all the explanations of what's happening with, I'm like, wait a second. You don't like the studies, you don't do this, but then all of a sudden now you're going to tell me what's going on with this? I don't even know, and I have a little bit of experience. I have a little tiny bit, and I can go, that doesn't quite compute to what...
Right.
Yeah, so that's the part that's also cool about the dog world is that I've been saying it now for a couple of years, it's truly, we're kind of in this renaissance period, where it's like we did things for long, we didn't know what we were doing, we just did it, now we're getting information, we're getting data, we're getting science, and it's showing us that some things are supported, like you were on the right track, and some other things we may have to, our sacred cow may not be as sacred as we thought it was.
Right.
So Now, with some things, is there anything that you guys are seeing on the horizon in the dog world with, let's go to the popular topic of today, AI? Anything going on that we're seeing that bringing AI into our dog worlds more?
AI is currently, I teach computer science at Chapman to biology students, and AI has been a journey.
Oh, yeah.
There's lots of people doing their homework with AI.
Oh, of course. It's getting more and more that way.
I also have a lot of issues with that also.
Anything we're seeing mixed in with, so I'll give you an example. In the security world right now, we're getting better. Like, so let's say the TSA person sitting at this computer screen, looking at bags all day long and looking at ways. Now the newer ones are highlighting things way faster and showing this could be a weapon, this could be this could be that. And now they're moving the human kind of down the line a little bit where the machine's going to go, yes, this warrants further inspection and reduce the fatigue on the human. Is there things that we're seeing in the dog world that's going to give us better accuracy or?
Not in the dog world yet, but there is a company which I would highly recommend you put on your podcast, even though they don't work dogs. I think it is so cool what they're doing it's a startup. I've done a little bit of work with them. They're called Canary, and they're using rodents right now, where they have, I am going to bastardize this, so I hope when they listen to this, they're not like horrified. But they can put sensors on the olfactory bulb of the rat, and then when the rat is in odor on your phone, so they use machine learning and AI in order to decode what is happening on the olfactory bulb. So you have a little different spots on the olfactory bulb that will light up when it's in odor 1 versus odor 2. And so then on your phone, it will say whether the rat is by odor 1, odor 2, or nothing. And it's really, really cool. And the idea here is that the one thing that the dog cannot do is tell you what the odor is.
Correct. Yep.
And so this gives you the opportunity for the natural olfactory system to do its job, which we have as man have done a very poor job at attempting to recreate.
Correct.
So stop trying to recreate the wheel or the olfactory system in this case and just improve it. So that is what I think is really cool and worth discussing on at a
What I've seen, this was like when I first met you when I was with the SEAL team projects, is when ONR was doing a lot of stuff with DARPA, what we were already seeing was harnesses that were, this would be baby AI compared to what it is now, so I can only imagine what it's really at now. And Nathan was kind of alluding to that, we're really close, but the harnesses with certain sensors or a chip within the dog communicating probabilities based on the algorithms of the dog's behavior towards odor versus non-odor type things.
I know that's been a big push. I don't know where they are. I think you said that where they are is that the device would be so expensive it would be
right now. What we're seeing is the device
and heavy.
Yes,
I think is another problem.
We've got the from what I've seen, the weight has been no problem because most of the phones nowadays contained all the same things that they needed on a harness. It's just now the phone manufacturers have made it small enough, light enough that you can do that. The bigger part on the military side was the encryption of communication. That was where things started becoming more problematic, is because it had to be a certain type of encryption to send it from here to here, and that we could get it and not be intercepted. But with actually what's going to be like consumer grade or let's say law enforcement grade is where, just like you said, the phone or a wearable device would tell you that the dog, based on the things, is highly probable to be on a target odor. Like you said, won't tell you the target odor, just says, yes, this behavior has been consistent with what we've collected data-wise in training and in operationals. And think about legally. So now we don't have the handler going, I think I got an alert. You would actually have something that could be printed out and put on. It's like having the laser and radar and all these things that say, yes, you were speeding. This is the speed you were going. This is going to increase for probable cause standards. Yes, the dog's indication and the verification through the AI part of it told the handler that this was a good reason to deploy.
And just think, in 20 years, you could put a little postage stamp on their olfactory bulb and not only know when they're in odor, but know what the odor is.
Exactly.
How cool would that be?
Yeah, that's the next level. But my joke to these new young handlers is when they start doing this, you know how hard I had it? I had to guess.
Yeah.
I had to go, I think my dog's doing the thing. I don't know. You guys, your phone, your watch is telling you the answer.
Yeah.
So, we're going to be the ones that we're walking uphill both ways in the snow to do our job where, pretty soon. Yeah, the younger ones that are alpha generation now will be like, I don't understand why it was so hard. You just take the dog out, it tells you, your watch tells you you were right. So, and then I'll end it on this. Right behind your head is the book, the Canine Biosensors one.
Oh, there she is.
Yep.
Oh.
So, For those who don't know what it is, just tell us a little bit about what the book was about and kind of like why it exists and where they should to go find it if you're a detection dog person.
Yes. So Canines, the original biosensor, I wrote with Craig Schultz. I didn't write it. I edited it with Craig Schultz, who is at the FBI, although he did this on his personal time, I will say.
Yeah.
He and I got all of our friends in the industry together. It was before I met you. It was early, right before COVID, actually. And we got our friends in the industry together to all write their own chapters on whatever it is that they are experts in. So I wrote an odor chemistry chapter, as well as a sensitivity, threshold, selectivity, generalization chapter with some of the ladies at Auburn. And Craig wrote a legal chapter. But there's a whole lot. I think there ended up being
Brad Gillespie in there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We have so many people in it. Lucia
Lazarowski, Bart.
Nathan Hall. Was Bart in it?
I think it was or part of the stuff that she does with him at the Performance Center.
We have a whole lot of people in it. And it ended up, because I got written over COVID, it ended up getting really long. It's like 800 pages. But all that, it's a pick and choose chapter, what chapter is relevant to you. And if you give me time to get back to my office, I can give you a discount code to purchase it also.
So how do they find you then? What's the best way to find you on either the webs or what socials?
So I was just recently made fun of by the handlers that I don't have Instagram. So apparently I need to work on that.
Yeah. But Facebook's for old people, in case you didn't know.
Because I know, but all of the handlers were. I was like, people should find me on LinkedIn because it's work.
That's true.
And all the handlers are finding me on Facebook. I'm like, okay, well now I have a Facebook account for this. Yep. And now the handlers, I'm getting older and the handlers are getting younger, and they're like, why don't you have Instagram? But Facebook is the best place to find you now. And if you tell them how to spell my last name, it is very helpful.
We'll put it on the screen for everybody to see.
Facebook's the easiest, and I guess apparently look out, and I'll be on Instagram here at some point.
Yep. Well, now that Meta owns both of them, it's a really easy thing to do. You just go, I want Instagram.
I know, I was told this. I know. I do have a website, which I will also give you because I don't offhand know what the website is.
But I love, but go ahead and tell me what your new company's name is.
My new company?
Or D-O, the way you did the logo.
Oh, my thing is the DeGreeff Odor Research Group. Yeah. So it's the dog
group. I love it.
Group.
It was awesome. That was a nice little play on names there.
Yes. It took us a really long time to get that
was
right.
I'm
like, it's gonna spell dog somehow.
So how do we find you, Lindsay?
So I am on Instagram at Waldrop Lab.
Oh, fine. I
don't post there very much. I have a personal account, but I just mostly post like my garden and crochet and my
normal stuff.
But I also have a website. It's waldroplab.com. So
perfect.
People can go and get papers, and I'm also on LinkedIn. And I think those are my professional ones right now.
We don't support the paywall in papers.
Yes.
So email us and we will send you
a paper.
Papers. You could email me about other people's papers and I will send them to you. To be clear,
I'm so glad you brought that up.
All scientists are like that.
Yes.
We are happy to subvert the system actively because we actually get zero money from those papers.
Yeah.
We actually sometimes give them money occasionally.
To publish our work, which seems like a scam because it is.
Yep.
It is indeed. Yes.
And speaking of that too, it kind of brings up with. So I recorded your lecture that you did earlier this week, and Paul Bunker's, and that will be on our website. And for certain segments, it's free for them. But other ones, what I'm doing is with you, because you guys doing this, what we raise, I'm going to put back towards research or things like that. So people that do put money into it, because as much as I do with my membership, they get free within the membership kind of thing, or they get a discount or whatever. But what I want to do is, this gives an opportunity to some of that stuff that comes in, we can push back into either hosting something or doing something. Like you guys already do so much for free within the community to do this. I say free meaning that it's of your time and other things.
I'm all for travel is the biggest issue I have when I need to run a dog trial is getting my people into the right spot. So
there's any things that we can do is always helpful. And thank you guys both for coming on, spending a little bit of time, especially after standing for all the hours. At least you got to sit down for this.
Yes,
And this.
thank you for not doing a
Yep,
standing podcast.
yes. Yeah, and I'm going to try to get you at least comfortable chairs to sit in
Oh,
too.
they're great.
So yeah.
No, but thank you for letting us use your space and finding us space. That
course.
was
Thank you.
spectacular.
Yeah, and we'll we hope obviously this isn't the end. We'll keep doing more and more research
Yes.
with you and everything else. So.
And if the Sonoma County guys are out there or listening to this, we greatly appreciate all of their help.
Yeah.
They have been awesome.
It was unbelievable how much help they were for getting the facilities, the explosive aids that we had to go through for that. So no, awesome, and we'll definitely be doing more of these in the future without a doubt. Thank you everybody for tuning in to Canines Talking Sense, where it's okay to be nosy.